Hello, it's a pleasure to welcome you all to the session titled OSS, a BT View. My name is Ravi Ramachandran. I am the Digital OSS Director in BT. I'm responsible for building next generation software products that helps plan, build, design, and manage our infrastructure. Now, this includes BT's critical infrastructure networks as well as BT's own private clouds as well. As part of my role, I develop strategies and roadmaps that helps to modernize BT's IT, which is IT as well as network infrastructure. But today, I'm quite glad to share our OSS transformation journey with you all. Now, this journey began 3 to 4 years ago. Now, like any other telco, we had loads and hundreds of IT systems as part of our OSS landscape. Now, a lot of them were a decade or two old. Remember, these systems actually helps all the customer facing units across BT, whether it is consumer, it's enterprise or global. We build these softwares that help underpin the networks that helps us launch products and solutions on top of them. Yep. Now, as you can imagine, we had accumulated a lot of these software systems over a number of years, if not a decade and more. It is quite uh, tempting to look at it more. Okay, how about going, reducing our system estate? Can we get into an IT transformation that reduces all our systems and simplifies it and keeps it sleek and neat? Yeah, why not? I think we definitely thought about it, but the place that where we began was slightly different from what I just mentioned. It's not IT transformation. We actually looked at how do we provide the best customer experience. It was always keeping our customers at the center of it. But equally, it was also about our colleagues. It is about our network colleagues because they are the ones who eventually plan, build, and manage these networks, which then allows us to deliver the best customer experience. So as you can imagine, this is about our customers and colleagues. It's about people. It is about actually the people who then look into their processes as to how they go about doing their job and then changing the ways of working using some of the new tools and technologies that actually bring about the much needed culture change, if you like. That's the sort of transformation that we looked at. This was more from a look in point of view, where we looked into our people, our processes, etc. But equally, we, as part of this larger transformation journey, we also looked out. We looked out where the industry is moving. How are these networks evolving? How do we then future proof our software tools and hence our colleagues, so that we then are quick and fast and basically adapt ourselves to these new ways of working. Now, it is quite obvious that the networks are becoming more programmable in nature, and hence software becomes a fundamental building block, if you like, to actually make these change happen, whereby you can launch network kits and actually services very quickly than what we used to do in the past. Now, with that as the context, we then looked at what are the tools that helps us to achieve these. Now, I mentioned about looking into our people and process. So it was one of the first fundamental things that we did as part of the transformation was to bring those IT teams in, or the OSS team, which is traditionally part of those IT units, move them into the network teams. So that was one of the first steps that we initiated. What it meant was we had software engineers and then we had network engineers being part of one team, which actually accelerated the way we could reimagine the process and change the way we work. Obviously, some of these tools do play an important part. We looked into our estate, we had a plethora of tools, but none of them were able to deliver what we were looking for as part of our future ways of working, simply because there is too many handoffs and they were cut out to do certain things and they were quite rigid, and the data was all over the place. So we then decided that we're going to build these new tools on the back of open source technologies, I'm referring to how about building low code platforms where we now have our network designers create infrastructure more as a code and build these networks more as a service which can be consumed by our CFUs about. So that's what that's the transformation journey that we have been in. And today I would really like to share what are those top three key principles or ethos, or call it what you may, which actually helped us to keep ourselves on this journey and more focus and ensure that we deliver the best customer experience that I spoke about earlier. So with that, I'll really touch upon those three elements that enabled us to transform the way we operate today. So let me start with self-serve. It's one of our overarching fundamental principles, which sort of gets applied across all different programs and projects that we run today. So I'll explain this using an example. Let us say we have to introduce a new kit onto the network. Traditionally, it involves variety of steps that spans many months, right from working with our equipment vendors on iterative mode to agree on a new spec, which then gets consumed. The artifacts could be PDFs or Excel sheets and variety of information, which then gets consumed internally within BT. We then look into customizing it and then making those changes to those documents, eventually passing it to the OSS teams, which then starts, okay, I've got all my OSS components will have to start absorbing them, understanding that yes, there are new kits that are coming in. We'll have to start acknowledging them. So this whole process takes many months. So we've introduced this concept of NetOps. Now, I mentioned earlier that it's about our people, and we have software engineers as well as network engineers in our team. So we borrowed the concept of DevOps and introduced it into the network world. Today, our network engineers use certain platforms where they log in and introduce these changes using standards which are exposed by these new kits, and make those changes in an agile way, using the concepts of CI and CD, and eventually promote these changes onto the network. Now, this is possible because the software teams have built low code platforms whereby the network engineers comes onto the tool all by themselves, drags these new kits which are in the software form, for example, industry standard like IETF Young, which these tools can understand, and then make those necessary changes in an intuitive UI. And once they are comfortable, they can then use these agile DevOps concepts like CI and CD. And then once they are comfortable, they'll make these changes onto the production all by themselves. So the underlying theme is we want to delink the software teams from delaying our network engineers introducing changes onto the network. Now, not only has it actually reduced our time to market where from many months to few weeks, but it has given us a tremendous opportunity to upskill our teams. Now, the lines between the software engineers and network engineers are already great. We have software engineers aspiring to become network engineers, and equally network engineers wanting to become software engineers. And we are in a great world because it allows us to have more upskilling of our people and augurs well for our organization. Let me move to the second foundational principle, which is around providing digital experience. Now, digital means different things to different people. I'm going to bring this to life by calling out a couple of examples which people can relate to. We've introduced the concepts of digital twins to our colleague. And by that, as a network engineer, I get to see an exact three-dimensional model replica of a chassis, which I would otherwise see in an exchange. It's just that the one that you're seeing on the tool is a lot more enriched. It tells you what ports in use, what's in service, what are the free ports available, what's the traffic running on these sites, what's the faults that are there against these ports. Basically, it gives you a lot of insights on the back of which you can take some informed decisions, which are again defined in the form of rules using Tosca and rules, a self-service mechanism where through digital twins experience, people elevate their usage of tools and perform actions which are again fully automated. Now, I can be an optimization expert who come in, want to see what's there in an exchange and how do I optimize an exchange by virtue of moving or migrating services from one place to the other, thereby freeing up a certain kit and then possibly removing it and thereby saving a lot of power on the back of it. This is taking the experience of people who otherwise used to do more of repetitive jobs, looking into excels and more of low value jobs. This has now taken them to do highly insight driven high value jobs. Now, not just from a experience, it is also about automation. Now, we have introduced hyper intelligent automation tools which use the concepts of machine learning algorithms to predict the capacity and forecast as well, and on the back of it, trigger any specific capacity request, which is fully automated. Now, this literally has saved many of our planners from doing things manually to actually doing it in a lot more automated fashion. This really has helped us and elevated us to upskill ourselves and move to perform a lot more insight driven jobs. Finally, we move to the last principle, which is around data. Data strategy was the first elements that we built in our larger transformation journey. This is fundamental to all the digital tools and the self-serve tools that I spoke about earlier. In a telco, inventory is sort of your crown jewel, if you like, but it is also one of the most talked about pain points. Inventory problems are either around disjoint set of inventories, or I have multiple set of inventory systems. They are scattered data all over the place, and the data itself is inaccurate. And finally, the data model is very inflexible and old. Now, what does this mean? How does this really affect our customers or our colleagues, for example? If you have systems that house different set of inventory, whether it is physical, logical, service, or even your space inventory or your cooling data inventory, etc. Now, more often it is the virtual inventory information. So you've got a variety of inventory dimensions that I spoke about. And if you have these systems all over the place, your processes are going to be built around these, and hence a lot of manual handoffs and stitching together, which is still going to be more siloed as opposed to an end-to-end orchestrated, automated functions. So all the digital tools, etc., are all built around a firm data strategy that we had. So our decision was to bring all these data into one single platform, and we called this an unified inventory, otherwise called service and resource inventory management system, SRIMS. It is built on a data model which is more aligning to the industry and forward looking as well. We subscribe to the TM Forum SID data model, and our underlying data store itself is an open source graph database. We chose graph as opposed to a traditional relational data model because a graph naturally represents our networks, and it allows us to do faster querying as opposed to the relational database. And more importantly, by nature of its modeling, it's quite easy to launch new tools on top of it, which I spoke about earlier. We have already consolidated a lot of our inventory systems onto this new platform, which has actually helped us to accelerate all the planning processes and the digital tools that could be built on top of this single platform. So we are already seeing a lot of rich dividends because of by virtue of taking these decisions, which to me is something that anyone should take right up front and be very clear of what they want to do. To be honest, we spent good amount of 12 months ish around that to decide on how we want to go about doing this, and then we executed a lot of our actions and tools around this. So a very important decision that we took to moving to a more open source graph database, and that allowed us to quickly launch a lot of new tools on the go. So these are the three key principles around which our platforms have been built, on top of which a lot of these new tools have been delivered in the last couple of years and so. So I would really like to summarize by stating that, you know, within BT, OSS has gone through a digital experience. We now are digitizing our exchanges. We now have digital tools that allows our colleagues to launch their network changes, which invariably provides a rich experience and a faster time to market for our customers. And more importantly, we have ensured that we carry our people along the journey, whether it is about software engineers trying to understand and grasp the network terminologies and upskill themselves, or the network engineers learning a bit of Tosca and Yang and using the concepts of CI/CD, etc. It's been an overall an enriching experience for all of us. We recognize this is an evolving journey. The networks continue to evolve and we continue to adapt. And the building blocks in the form of the platforms that we have built thus far would help us to remain agile and nimble footed and be ready to embrace the next set of changes that we are going to see. Hopefully, this helped you to understand our journey from our point of view. Happy to hear more questions and thanks a lot for listening to me. Thanks very much.